wanted to make you a quick little tutorial on setting type in InDesign. So here I am in InDesign. I am in Essentials Classic. That's how I like to work in InDesign. And I'll start from scratch. Let me see. I'm setting up my workspace here. I've got my character window and my paragraph window. And those are available here in the type pull down. Don't confuse them with character styles and paragraph styles. Two different things. These are the ones I want. And I'm going to come get my type tool and I'll marquee a box. And there's a text frame. You can see the cursor blinking up there. And you'll see that little number sign, that little hatch mark. So the reason I can see that is I have, I'll hide it. Hang on for a second. I'm going to go to type, fill with placeholder text. So here is some Greeking. We call this lorem ipsum. But if I go back into type and all the way at the bottom, I say show hidden characters. Notice these little blue figures light up. These are invisible. In other words, they don't print, they don't show. They're to show you where things are on the page. They're helpful guides. And when I work, I like to have that switched on. It's a toggle. You either hide it or you show it. So if we look at this, InDesign thinks of this as a paragraph, even though it's only one sentence. And the way I can tell is this little backwards P. We call that a pilcrow. InDesign thinks of this as a paragraph, even though it's one very short sentence. I can tell that because of this pilcrow here. InDesign thinks of this as a paragraph, all the way down to the bottom. So these three things, even though they're very different sizes, they're all paragraphs. So let's assume that this is going to be my headline. So usually for headlines, I like to use a sans serif face. Not always, but just to get us kicked off. I'll choose a sans serif bold face and I'll make the character bigger. Now that's a pretty long headline, but I'm going to make it a little bit short just for the fun of it. Now, when I select all of this, I want to make sure when I do the selection of the line, I include the pilcrow. That's going to be important in a minute. And I don't generally like to use there we go. Watch this. I'm going to put my hands on the keyboard. With my left hand, I'm going to do Shift Option. And with my right hand, Shift Command. And with my right hand, I'm going to hit the greater than arrow. There are two arrows just to the right of the M key on your keyboard. There's a lesser than arrow and a greater than arrow. Shift Command greater than arrow takes me up 2 points at a time. And if you look down here as I do this, you can watch it happen. So that's type size. And then the next thing I want to adjust is the space between the lines. I call this leading because I'm an old. You call this line spacing because you are a young. If I grab all of this, I can do it over here. Or I can do it on my keyboard. If I put my finger on the Option key this time and I use my cursor keys, if you look in the bottom right-hand side of your keyboard, do you see the 4 arrows? We call those the cursor keys. And if I hit the up arrow with my finger on the Option key, I can tighten the line spacing, or I can just come over here and do it manually. Now this is a pretty tight line spacing. I want to be careful of my ascenders, that's part of the type that goes up, and my descenders, that's the part of the type that goes down. Make sure they don't touch, so let me see. Yeah, my ascenders and descenders are okay. So there's my headline. And then I think I'll make a subhead. So a subhead, if I'm dealing with hierarchy on the page, the subhead will be the next size. And I'll do, let me see, this is Franklin Gothic Heavy. So I'll come over here and I'll type Franklin for Franklin Gothic. And I'll choose light italic because I want there to be some contrast between these. And then this will be my body copy. And I'll make that, let's see, I think I'll make it Times New Roman. Now, what you choose for your typefaces is, of course, your choice. We'll talk more about this in my class in Project 3, but for now, I have a sans serif headline, a sans serif subhead, and some body copy. And I can go into the body copy and I can do this. Now, I don't know if you saw what I did there, but I added line spacing or leading to the body copy. Do you see this little red mark here, this little plus sign? This is InDesign saying to me, hey Chris, you have more copy than this box can hold. And so I have to pull this down. And you can see, this is the part that I didn't grab onto. So I've got to grab it all. This is 20.4. I'll grab it all and I'll come in here and I'll make sure it's all the same size. All right. So you don't want a little red plus sign at the bottom. That means your copy's getting cut off. Now let's take a look at this. Let's talk about kerning and letter spacing. Kerning is the space between two distinct letters. So let me type way. In certain typefaces, in certain cuts of typefaces, you're going to find that there's too much space between the letters. And you can see it right here between this capital W and this lowercase a. Do you see that the space between the A and the Y and the space between the A and the W doesn't match? Think of it like you're pouring water between the letters. You should be able to pour the same amount of water between every letter. And I can see here that this pair is too wide. So I'm going to come up to the kerning. That's these two letters. And I'm going to tighten that up. If I wanted to use my keyboard commands, again, it would be Option, and this time it would be the left-facing arrow on the cursor keys. And I can go in, and I can kind of squint a little, see if there's anything else. It's usually between a capital letter and a lowercase letter. But for now, I think I'm okay. And then there's what we call letter spacing. That's up here. It's the one below kerning. And that's between every letter. If I start to increase the letter spacing, if I'm working on a layout and I want a very luxurious layout, I want lots of white space, I want it to look very, very high end, I'm going to add a little letter spacing between the letters. If I'm working on body copy and I want it to be super readable, maybe I need to add a little letter spacing between the letters. Or maybe I want to tighten it. It's going to do, you say, how much letter spacing do I push in or pull out? And the answer is, it depends on your typeface. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. What are you trying to convey with your typesetting? Usually, when I do a negative letter spacing, I don't go past -20. That's kind of my hard rule. I find that when I go past 20, do you see how this is very tense to me? This is creating tension for me. Your mileage may vary. Play around with it. So there's kind of a paragraph of type, a subhead, a headline. What's missing here, these are all scrunched together. I need to add some space between them. Now, when you're just starting out with typesetting, you tend to do this. You add an extra hard return between paragraphs. This is how an amateur does it, and you're not an amateur, so let's not do that. We're going to use what's called paragraph spacing. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to grab this Pilcrow, and I'm going to come up to the paragraph window. This is space above the paragraph, and this is space below the paragraph. I'm going to deal almost exclusively with space below. So I'm in picas. I'm doing this in picas, which I recommend to you. If you're in inches right now, my suggestion would be to go to Preferences and go to Units and make sure that it says picas. Horizontal and vertical units, you want to be dealing in picas. Picas are the measurement tool that we use for typesetting. Not inches, not centimeters, picas. There are 12 points to a pica. And so if I come over here and I go to paragraph, this is space below. And by the way, if you hover over things, it'll tell you. So this is space before, this is space after. I'm going to use this, and I'll do 9 points of space between my subhead and my headline. And then I'll do 6 points of space between my headline and my subhead and my body copy. And when I'm done with all of that, I'm going to come down here to this little button and hit preview. It turns off the invisibles. It turns off anything that I don't need, the frames and everything else. And now I can really look at my copy. One more thing before I stop. Can you see how many hyphenations there are in this copy? I don't like it. And the other thing I don't like is how many partial words and how many short words there are. We call this the rag, and this is a bad rag. For one thing, it's creating this kind of shape that's going out this way. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab this, go up to paragraph, to this submenu at the top of paragraph, and I'm going to turn off the hyphenation. And you'll see the moment I did that, the type now has a kind of a more pleasing rag to it. It goes in and out. It's like a, it has kind of rhythm to it. And then the other thing I'm going to do, I don't like lines that end with 2-letter words. So I am going to put one finger on the shift key and one finger on the return key. This is called a soft return. And what I'm doing here is I am kind of sculpting the rag to be a little bit more pleasing to me. And this is kind of a pain, and you might not want to do it at first. We'll talk about it more when we do project 3. But so you see how now it kind of has more of a sweep to it. And then if I really want to get picky, I might go in and adjust the letter spacing so that I get more of a rhythm. And if I turn the invisibles back on, you can see that's what a soft return looks like. That's shift return. If I do a hard return, if I just hit the return key and do a hard return, that's a pilcrow. That's not what we want. Because if we're using paragraph space on our body copy paragraphs, it's going to add extra space. But if I do a soft return, shift return, I'm kind of sculpting the type to create a nice, pleasing text box shape. All right. I have another video about paragraph styles that I will share. If you want to start thinking about paragraph styles, if you're setting anything that has more than one text box and you want everything to be consistent, you should use paragraph styles. But I feel like this is enough for a careful dip of the toe into typesetting and InDesign. There's a lot more that we'll talk about, but these are just the basics.